going into World's Strongest Man in 2022, we're quickly approaching that contest, and we don't have the events that we're going to be doing. This is something with World's Strongest Man. I don't think it's a secret. I've shared it before. I'm sure other competitors have talked about it before. It's always this big guessing game that gets played going into World's Strongest Man and trying to figure out information about events and what might possibly be there. And, as a very serious competitor trying to get ready for World's Strongest Man, it's important to know what events you're going to be doing. Welcome to the Shaw Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Shaw, and today we've got a short episode, and I'm going to get real with you guys. A lot of times I don't talk about my life as much and what I've got going on. Of course, on this podcast, I've shared some examples of stories and things that I have gone through personally that I feel have value to people listening. And right now, last week, a lot of things kind of came to a head in my life, and I want to share a strategy that I use for myself to kind of stay on track, because I've always got a lot of logs in the fire. I've got a lot of things going on. Of course, I'm trying to train and prep at this point for World's Strongest Man, but on top of that, if you followed anything on YouTube, we are in the process of building a new warehouse/gym, and that build is underway right now. Should have been done. Actually, should have started back in October and been done by the end of the year. But now we're quite literally coming up on the end of March, end of March, and it is not done yet. So we're way behind schedule there. On top of that, we're having a house built as well on that property. So we're moving from where I'm sitting right now. And all of this has to be executed and finalized by kind of like the middle of May before I leave for World's Strongest Man. So there's a lot of moving parts that are going on and happening right now. And on top of all of that stuff, we still have to run our businesses. So there's, multiple businesses that we're trying to oversee, operations for that, inventory for that. We've been dealing with supply chain issues, overcoming different hurdles, especially with Undefined Nutrition. And Undefined is something that behind the scenes we've been working very, very hard on, but that's almost an entirely different story of all of the hurdles and things that we've had to overcome. And it will be great. I promise that it will be great. But, behind the scenes, it's been very frustrating because I've been trying to control what I could on that front, but I feel like a lot of the things I can't control as well. And that kind of brings me to the point of today. The strategy that I use is quite literally taking out a sheet of paper. And if on that sheet of paper, you write a big circle and then write down what you have going on in your life. But inside the circle, you put the things that you can control, directly control, that you're in control of. And then outside of the circle, if there's other things you're thinking about or have going on, but they're not within your control, write them outside of the circle. So I'll use an example right now. Going into World's Strongest Man in 2022, we're quickly approaching that contest, and we don't have the events that we're going to be doing. This is something with World's Strongest Man. I don't think it's a secret. I've shared it before. I'm sure other competitors have talked about it before. It's always this big guessing game that gets played going into World's Strongest Man and trying to figure out information about events and what might possibly be there. And, as a very serious competitor trying to get ready for World's Strongest Man, it's important to know what events you're going to be doing. And also from a health and safety standpoint, with the kind of weights that we have to move, if you're not well prepared for the events that you might have, it can pose a little bit of an injury risk, certainly. And as far as your performance, you want to be training what you have to do at the contest. So when it comes to that right now in my circle, I can control my training. I can control my eating and my sleeping and my recovery. All of those type of things would go inside of the circle. The events that we have to do, even though that is in my mind, it has to go outside of my circle because I'm not the one making the decision as far as what the events are going to be. And I can only execute on information that I learn. So right now, the events that would be at World's Strongest Man have to be outside of my circle. When it comes to business operations and that type of stuff, again, I have to write the parts down that I can control directly. And when it comes to, supply chain issues and trying to keep that type of timeline going, a lot of that stuff, I just have to be patient and say, all right, that has to go outside of my circle. I'm not going to be able to control that. On top of that, as well, I like to think about my family time. So, being a good dad, that definitely goes in my circle. Being a good husband, that goes in my circle. And when it comes to all of this and executing on a daily basis, one of the things that I very much try to do is be present in the moment, no matter what I'm doing. So if it comes to, training, I have to be present with training. So I have to not think about all of the other things I have going on in the day. And one of the things that I've done in this prep for World's Strongest Man is I've actually changed my training time to earlier in the day. And I just have found, with as busy as I am and as many things as I've got going on, training in the afternoon or later in the day, I was getting into a position where I had so many different things going on and I was having to bump my training time or not getting out there when I wanted to, or thinking I had to finish something else before I went to training. And by the time I got out there also, I wasn't quite as mentally fresh. Physically, I just wasn't into it as much as I needed to be, and I wasn't placing it as much of a priority, I guess. So I bumped that to earlier in the day so I can sit down and do some work in the morning, get a meal in, get out and train, and then execute on that. But again, with as much as I might have going on in the day, when I walk in the gym, I have to focus on my training. I have to execute my training. And then from there, I need to shift into business mode, and I have to execute on whatever I need to on that given day when it comes to business, or when it comes to meetings, or when it comes to the build that we have going on, or making choices for the warehouse or for the house or whatever. There's a lot of different moving parts. And if anybody's ever built anything before, or built a house or built a warehouse, anything like that, there's so many parts to that have to be executed on. But there's a time and a place to execute on all those parts. So I try to, again, going back to the circle, I'm trying to think of what can I control and what needs to be done right now in that circle. And of the stuff that's in that circle, what can I kind of check off the list? What can I get done and then move on from there, where I don't need to worry about that anymore, and kind of get it out of the circle so I can control it, get it done, and then get it out of the circle so I don't have to worry about it anymore. And then I can move forward and keep executing in that manner. But being present in the moment is definitely something that is easy to say and harder to do. For example, when it's time to, be a dad and play with my boys and be present with a phone, one of the things that I like to do is take the phone and either put it in a different room or put it very far away from me, because it's too easy to get on the phone and, check emails or, go on social media and try to, interact with people, that type of thing. So even though I might be sitting there with the boys, I like to be present. So if I have the phone, I have all the distractions away, I can focus 100% and execute in that moment on being a good dad. And then, the same thing with Carrie and I, and this is something we talk about often in our relationship, because Carrie does so much for the business itself and, for our family, that it's very difficult, once we put the kids to bed and that type of thing, for us to not go into talking about business, or for her to not jump on the computer, me to, jump on my phone or computer and do emails and do work. So taking that time for us individually as a couple is also very important to kind of put the distractions away. Again, easier said than done, but that's one of those things that we can control. And it's not easy. I'm not sitting here and saying to you, this is easy. And yes, I have a lot on my plate, and I'm very excited about World's Strongest Man this year. I've been training unbelievably hard, but having all of this other stuff going on, I have to be able to execute on all of that other stuff as well as my training individually in order to be the best that I possibly can be. Now, was it easier back when I was getting started with Strongman when, I, at that point, wasn't married. I didn't have kids. Basically, my entire day revolved around eating and training and sleeping, and that's all I had to focus on. Yes, of course, it was easier. And, I know that a lot of the guys that I go to compete against, that's exactly the scenario that they're in. They don't have families. They don't have businesses to run. They aren't doing builds or doing any of this other type of stuff. But they're younger than me. A lot of them are younger than me, and they're not in that position. And it's not a excuse, and it's definitely not something. I'm very proud of what I do on a daily basis and how I'm able to execute. And it's been a tremendous amount of hard work to get into the position that I'm in now, coming from that position. And, on top of that, as you guys know, we're doing the podcast, we're doing YouTube content, we're putting out a bunch of stuff on social media. So all of these things take time. And, myself, Carrie, our team, everybody plays their role in executing, and we try to do the best that we possibly can. But again, at the heart of it, it comes back to really being honest with yourself and sitting down and saying, okay, I've got this circle. What's going to go in my circle? And then of the stuff that's in that circle, what's the priority potentially, and what can I control, and what can I focus on, and what can I execute on? And, that's really my primary focus at this point, because I know that in the next 9 weeks at this point, so many different things are going to happen. Our house is going to have to be moved. I don't know at this point if our new house is going to be done or not. So we may be storing all of the stuff from our house and, figuring out where we're going to stay in the meantime. And then on top of that, I'm going to have to figure out where my gym is going to be and where I'm going to train, and I'm going to execute on that. So there's a lot of things that are going to be happening, but a lot of great things on top of that. Getting into, the new warehouse and gym is going to be very exciting. Whenever the new house is ready, getting in there is going to be very exciting. So on top of all of the things that have to be executed on here, and everything that, could potentially create some stress and be a change that we're going to have to deal with, that I'm going to have to deal with, I'm also grateful for every single part of that. And as everything falls into place, I know that it will be perfect. And it'll be perfect because I put the work in that I could put in when I needed to put the work in. So I'm not a person that likes to spend a lot of time or energy, thinking or focusing on things that are out of my control. And, I know that for a lot of people out there right now, with the way the world is, it can be overwhelming. And, if you turn on the news and watch different things, that can also be a distraction, but also get you in a position where you're worried about things that you can't necessarily control as well. So, not that I have any time to watch TV. We don't really turn on the TV at all. Carrie and I and our life, it just doesn't fit. But also, I don't like watching a lot of that stuff because, it can get you wound up and get you in a position where you're not focusing on your life and what you can execute in your world, in your house, and your life on a daily basis. And that's really where I like to keep my attention and really, like I've said before, try to win the day. So just sharing with you guys today. This is something that that came up last week, as you know, we kind of hit a couple hurdles with a gym and warehouse build, and you know, some inspections and some different things that we had to get done. It was, you know, where I needed to sit down for a moment and say, look, I can't stress about this other stuff. I have to think about what I can execute, and that always really helps me, along with being grateful for you know, several different things on a daily basis. It keeps me in a good headspace and helps me to execute each and every day. So for everybody out there that's listening to this, I appreciate you guys, and you know, if it'll help you, literally take out a sheet of paper and just write that circle down, and think about what you've got going on in your life, and different things that you're focused on, and write down what you can control, and then put that in the circle. Write down what you can't control, put that outside of the circle, and it'll help to give you some perspective and focus in your life on a daily basis on what you can execute on. So if you got something out of this, guys, today, please share the podcast. I really appreciate, you know, all the new subscribers here on YouTube, everybody that's downloading it on every other platform out there. I am having a lot of fun with this, and, you know, really enjoying being able to connect with you guys in a different way. If you have topics, if you have questions that you want me to speak about, if you have guests that you'd like to see on the podcast, please email me at askbrian@shawstrength.com. That's the email that we've got set up here for the podcast. And thank you to everybody that has emailed in already. You know, the feedback is great. The questions that have come in are great as well. Make sure that your questions are something that I can talk about on the podcast, you know, as well. There's some people that have asked about different things with video, which, you know, we'll look into. But for this email, we're trying to keep it dedicated to the podcast. So just ask Brian at shawstrength.com, whatever topics you guys want to hear. And please share the show. Really appreciate you guys. Hope you all are doing amazing for now. Go out and be great, and we'll check you guys later.